from Teachers Run Club. So we're going to be getting into it. Croeso I Abertawe.
Live from Swansea, this is the Twilight Show with Nathan Gynn on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
And Croeso I Abertawe. Welcome to Swansea. Bore da pawb. Hello, everyone. And it is me. It's Nathan Gynn, and I am here on Teachers Talk Radio on the Twilight Show this glorious Wednesday evening here in South Wales by the coast, and it is beautiful. And we're going to be talking about running. We're going to be talking about whether it's couch to 5K, whether it's 10K, whether it's half marathons, whether it is more. And there certainly are some people doing more than that as well. We're going to be talking about why it's such a big draw for teachers, the benefits, and we've got our guest Dan Chaplin, who's going to be talking to us about Teacher Run Club as well. Now I can see a few people filling up the studio. Hi, Roger's History 1 saying hi to us, and the text messages are there. Remember, you can text in if you have a question. Text it in and we'll read it out. We'll ask our guests. You can ask me questions as well, or you can call in. You can call in and talk to myself, ask a question. Roger's History 1 has texted in saying, Roger History, my parents should have named me that. Yeah, thanks, Tom. Joining in. Now, obviously, we do have listeners there texting in. Now, one of the things I've been dealing with this week, and I'll put it out there, since Tom is one of our listeners here as well, we'll know this. I've been dealing with a crisis of heritage. I have been dealing with the fact that people finding out, I've never really hidden, finding out that I am not 100% Welsh. I am part Welsh, as one of our other hosts, Kate Jones, has called it, which I feel, it sounds a little bit like a kind of Harry Potter mudblood kind of terminology there. I'm not sure about that. So I have been looking into how I become a Welsh citizen. So if anyone is listening from around the world, particularly in Wales, if you can think of some things that I can do to prove that I am Welsh, beyond the ability to speak a little bit of Welsh as well, maybe I need to do those things. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Now, I have seen Dan. Oh, we've got a caller coming in. Challenge Inspiration. Hopefully, this is Dan. So I'm going to just click in to allow you to join. And we should see him joining now. Can you hear me there?
I have got you. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Is that Dan? Yeah.
That is Dan speaking. Yes.
Hi. Yeah, I saw you. A couple of different names logged in that I thought could be you, and so I was kind of trying to work out the different pieces. Now, Dan, I've kind of given us a little bit of a run in there, talking about running, talking about some of the kind of reasons, I guess we'll get into why people find it such a draw. But before we get started, if you could give us kind of a little bit of background about who you are. First of all, and I guess what Teachers Run Club is, if we get into that first of all.
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. I'm Dan Chaplin. I've been a PE teacher in Luton at a primary school for about 12 years now. My passion's always been about, getting children active and finding really fun and engaging ways for them to just enjoy sport. It's not always about winning, being the best. It's about setting up those active habits for life. And naturally, over the last few years, that has now progressed onto working with the adults as well, because at the end of the day, the adults, the teachers, are the role models to the children. And we want to be able to show the children, we are active and we want you to be active too. And I think during lockdown, that was where the birth of kind of Teachers Run Club came from. And that was just seeing more and more teachers and school staff just logging in on Strava and going out for runs, particularly taking their lunchtime to get out of their house and putting in that 10, 15-minute run. And that's where the initial idea for the kind of virtual club came from.
Now, just to put it in context, I guess I would describe you as a runner. You would describe yourself as a runner. What sort of distances do what's your kind of running distance style? What do you go for yourself?
So for me personally, I've been running for probably about 8 years or so, but I very much started as a cyclist. And I would now call myself a triathlete after completing my first one recently. But I'll run 5, 6 times a week. My favorite distance is a half marathon. But I am training for an ultra 100K, which is in 3 weeks' time now.
Sorry, just swallowed 100 kilometers. And
Yeah.
how long, sort of, how time wise for anyone listening, what sort of running time is that then that you'd be running for?
I mean, the event spans over 2 days. There are options to be able to walk, which is sort of somewhere between 24 and 36 hours. I'll be running with my brother, and hopefully we'll be doing it in around 12 hours or so. That's the plan.
Wow. So, wow. Okay. But as we talk today, we're not kind of focusing on ultras. We're not really focusing on a kind of any. We're going to be talking about the whole span of running today, aren't we? A kind of, those. I did mention the Couch to 5K, which is very popular with people, and talking across the spectrum. But wow, that's a real kind of impressive running. I don't know what would I call that, running mileage.
I think it's important to remember that this isn't the first time that I have run. This isn't the first thing I ever did. I remember when I couldn't run a mile without taking a break, and something that I'm sure we'll talk a lot about today is about everyone's individual journey. And this has been a long journey for me to get to this point, and this is going to be the toughest thing I've ever done. And so, yeah, the Teachers Run Club kind of slogan is Couch to 5K to Ultra, and everything in between. It's about that wider community of people who just enjoy moving, really.
Okay, well, I did a little Twitter poll sort of earlier this week, and you might have seen some of the results that are coming, some of the conversations. And obviously, it was aimed at teachers. So, I told it, are you a teacher who runs? So we're talking about teachers. Now, I don't necessarily, although, there are a few hashtags in there targeting teachers, I get, runners. It wasn't sort of, I don't have a massive runner following, I think. So we're kind of going to assume that the 257 responses are a broad spectrum of teachers. And it was about 80%, just over 80%, who came back saying they were runners of some sort. Does that surprise you of what you've seen of sort of the running community, teacher running community?
I think if you'd asked me that question before lockdown, I would have been surprised. But we've seen the mass increase in how active people have been, particularly after the first lockdown when, people had that one chance to get out per day and they wanted to maximize it. It doesn't surprise me now, which is really exciting, I think, because it just shows the amount of people that are finding something that they enjoy doing that's active.
What do you think it is that's attracting? You sort of mentioned there that lockdown, people were getting out. Do you think it was part of that, the gyms being closed? Are these active people who have just transitioned from maybe doing something in a gym to doing it running outdoors, or is there something else at work here?
I think quite possibly. I think you have got a percentage of people who have had to substitute the gym with something else, and the obvious option is to get out and explore your neighborhood. But what I have noticed with the Teacher Run Club is the amount of people who just actually found that physical activity during the lockdown when they weren't active before. And then their aim was to be able to take this newfound love of running or cycling or whatever it was, and then build that into their day-to-day life once things started going back into normal and once they started going back to school.
Can I ask them what you said that you started off as a cyclist. You said you're a PE teacher, so I'm inferring a fit individual, someone who's always been active. What was it that got you into the running part of it?
I've always been active. School cross country was kind of my favorite activity, but I grew up playing ice hockey and roller hockey, so I've always had this active family. Me and my brother both played, all my friends played, and there was always had that competitive side to us, and always been part of a team. After I stopped playing that, I started cycling to work every day, and then I think just naturally I always was looking for the next step. What more can I do? And running became the next thing, and then it was okay. What's next? That's just because of how I am. I just enjoy looking for that other challenge. What I liked about running that was different to a team sport was all the pressure was on me. And it wasn't, oh, I hope my team play well, or I couldn't blame others for the performance. It was just about me against me, no one else. If I ran well, that was because I'd put the work in. If I didn't, then I might needed to try a little bit harder. I think that's what attracted to me to running as an individual sport.
I'm just going to put it out there for our listeners here as well. You know, I'm my journey, I guess, was a little bit different. So if you're listening, thinking, "Wow, you know, there's some athletic guys there chatting away about running," I was an active child. I will admit that. You know, I was sporty. Never distances. I consider myself a sprinter. I did a lot of outdoor ed, and I taught a lot of outdoor ed, sort of in my younger years, sort of in my 20s. But outdoor ed isn't necessarily sporty. So I used to smoke and drink. And so, you know, I definitely didn't have physical fitness, stamina, those kind of things. And in fact, if you've ever seen, you know, some stereotypical canoe instructors, they're not exactly long distance runners. It's not what we are known for. So running for me was very hard when I first started. And I did the couch to 5K. You know, when I first wanted to start running, but I had a very different journey there. Now, if you're listening in, I know we've had a few messages come from different people as they've come in on Twitter as we've been doing the poll. But if you're listening in and you do run, what we're going to be talking about for a little bit is what kind of gave you that impetus to run. Now, I will say that, as I say, I was unfit. I wasn't particularly healthy. I was smoking. You know, I definitely couldn't run. I'd always considered myself a sprinter. My brother was a runner. He did distance running. He did. It was part of a running club. And my brother actually passed away. He had a place on the London Marathon that he deferred for a year because he was unwell, and then he passed away before he actually got to take place. Now, when the results of this kind of survey that we did started coming in, a lot of people started talking about this, I guess, critical moment in their life, should I call it? This kind of possibly a death of a close relative or something of a friend that spurred them on to change their habits. Is that something that you hear through Teachers Run Club?
Yeah, I think it's a massive reason for a lot of people to initially find running or whatever that is for them, whether that's cycling or swimming or walking. And I think running is kind of the term we're using generally for just being active. But yeah, I think you look at things like the cancer research, Race for Life. It's a brilliant way in for a lot of people for their first challenge. And so many of the people that are taking part in that have, like you say, recently lost somebody. And I think it is a huge motivator for people to also reevaluate their lifestyle and think, actually, maybe I need to think about how I'm living and maybe make a few changes. I can use my wife for an example, and she won't mind me saying this, that when her father passed away about 3 years ago, it inspired her to try and do something for him, for herself, for pancreatic cancer, which is what he passed away from. And she ended up walking the Jurassic Coast Challenge, which is a 100k ultra event. And she was not someone who was active in terms of running or cycling or any events ever before. This was the first thing that she wanted to do. You know, she lives a very active lifestyle, but never to the point of taking on something that huge. And that was inspired by a loss. And I think you'll find, yeah, like you say, so many people will be in the same boat.
You know, I guess that maybe does that help people then, that they have this goal that they're working towards? I know, as I say, when I started running, it was to compete in an event that had been named after my brother. The Newmarket 10K was called the Marcus King 10K. And because he was a part of that club, and they renamed it, and then so it was a big deal for me, you know, to represent, to take part, and so having that goal gave me something to do. Is that a kind of a common thing, or are people getting into it just without targets?
I think that it's important that you have a target when you go into these things, because otherwise you don't really know what you're aiming for. And if you're, you know, the first event that you go for, like the one that my wife did, is you are doing it for that person or in that person's memory. You've got that goal constantly. That's what you're working towards. You're doing it for that person or in memory of that person. I think it becomes harder when you then decide to do another one. And then you've got to be motivated in a different way, because you're not going to be able to, you know, do every event in the memory of one person. You can use the motivation and inspiration you got from that first event, but then it's about finding new goals and finding new things to aim for to keep you moving in the right direction.
So, that competitive element, I guess, really interests me about kind of, having a target, being competitive, but it's a bit like you said, you're sort of competing with yourself somewhat. And that's quite a nice element of running, isn't it?
It is, and I think that it's something that you have to learn, because one of the biggest pieces of advice I give out or I talk to people about is making sure that you've set those goals equal to you, not to the person who's running past you in the street or that person who's 4 or 5 years ahead of you in that same journey. It's about setting an achievable goal. And we all know about SMART goals and so on. And it's so easy to think about. And then you go out for a jog and you see someone steam past you and you think, oh, I need to be going that fast. And it's about making sure that these goals are in line with what you're working towards and sticking to them. And, I started a community run club, and we've got these few new runners who are coming along, and they're saying, oh, next week we need to try and be up that hill a bit quicker. I said, don't worry about that. Let's just see in a few weeks' time if we can get to that lamppost without having to walk, and just real baby steps all along the way. It doesn't need to be big giant leaps.
Now, I'm just going to say there's a few more people entering the studio, as we talk through. We're here, we're talking with Dan Chaplin, Teacher Run Club. We're talking about running, talking about teachers and running here on the Twilight Show on Teachers Talk Radio. And you can call in. You can click that call in button if you have a question for us or want to share a story about what got you into running. You can also text us in if you have a question or if you have a comment on something that we're saying to join the conversation. Now, we've talked a little bit, kind of, I guess, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, okay, so we've got these people who are aiming for a challenge. We've got people who are maybe doing it for fitness. But there's also an element, and quite a number of the teachers who responded to this, and I don't know if this is specifically for teachers or runners in general, they kept using this word headspace about when they were running. It was, a time for them, a time alone, almost a meditative thing. Is that something that's kind of common in the running community? Is that something that's common just to teachers, do you think?
I think that's common in the running community or in just the active community in general, having that time to leave everything else on the table. Whether you run with your headphones in, listen to music or podcasts, or you just listen to nature when you go out, and just taking that time away from anything else to whatever you want to do, whether you want to think. I come up with a lot of ideas while I'm running, that you might not have even thought about. And when you were sitting down trying to ponder over that idea. And for me, I cycle to work, and sometimes I run to work, and I just know that I've got that 40-minute time, hour time where I'm going there. I've got no distractions, no one's going to be talking to me, and it's solely for me to process a day or get ready for the day or think about absolutely nothing. And I think that that's a big thing for a lot of people.
No, I really like what you said there about processing, and I think that's where I come from when I'm running, and if I've got something to think about and I need some time, almost pre-work time, if I know I've got a project to do, I'll go out for a run beforehand. Almost, I don't know, it gives me some thinking time, some order time, to get it sort of straight in my head. I'm definitely not a kind of back to nature runner, although I don't like road running. I like to run out in scenic places. I like more kind of coastal runs that are pretty kind of adventurous, and I think that comes from my adventurous background, my adventurous activity background. But I run with loud music in, right? Loud, kind of angry sometimes music that keeps me going. What about yourself? Are you a kind of birds tweeting runner? Do you need something to motivate you? Is it podcasts? What's kind of going on for you when you do it?
For me, it really depends on the kind of run I'm doing. If I'm going for a short run where I know I need to be fast, I might listen to a podcast from someone like Eddie Pinero, who is very motivational speaker. If I know I'm going out for a very long, slow run, I might just put some easy listening music. But like you, if I was running in the woods, or I just got back from Cornwall and I did some lovely coastal runs there, I wouldn't dream of putting music on, because I really want to appreciate everything that's around me.
Yeah, and so we've talked a little bit about ourselves. We've talked a little bit about kind of the meditative benefits, about maybe why some of these things happened. But surely running as a sport has physical benefits for anyone who's doing it as well, right?
Yeah, of course. Any cardiovascular type of exercise like that is going to be good for us, as long as we are being sensible and we're working up. We're not putting ourselves in a position where we're expecting ourselves to run huge distances without rest. As long as we're sensible with how we're running, yeah, of course, it's really very good for us. And also thinking of things like footwear, making sure that you've got the right supportive shoes on for you. And it doesn't mean that you need to go and spend 150 pounds on a brand new pair of shoes when you first start running. It's so accessible. You just go out with what you've got, and then you build that up as you go.
And I guess that's maybe why we saw the uptake of it during lockdown when everything was closed, because it is just there, isn't it? You don't need anything to go out for a run necessarily. I guess as you build up, you get the trappings of it. And I've, spent a bit of money on getting myself a nice watch, but in its most basic form, if there was someone who's listening who just wanted to start running, they could just go out for a fast walk, I guess.
100%. And that is, like you said, the beauty of it is it can be free. I don't think that my wife would agree that it is free after the amount of money that I spend on my sports, but in the most basic instinct, yeah, it is just so accessible just to start. And that's all you need to do. Once you start, you understand if you enjoy it, if there's more you want to do, and then of course, yeah, you can go and spend some more money on it if you want to. But even things like parkrun, you don't have to pay to take part in an event every week. It's brilliant.
Do you know what? One of our responders, Gemma Clark, she has been on the show before as a guest. She said she'd done 112 park run this week. I think it was 112. So it sounds like running is for some people almost like a, I don't want to say addiction, but it is very kind of motivating, right? You get into it and you stay in it. Some people.
Yeah, of course. And something like parkrun, it's got such a community feel to it. You can turn up there. There's going to be absolutely brilliant marshals and volunteers there. You can hang out and have a coffee afterwards. You can talk to anyone. Everyone's happy to speak to you. And you've got people from all walks of life. You've got the guys at the front who want to be going and getting PBs, and you've got the tail walkers at the back who are happy just to chat, and everyone would cheer anyone on. You can't go to parkrun and just not feel inspired by the sport, I don't think.
And I kind of wanted to ask about that as well. And we've talked a bit about you've got some ultra runners within the teaching community. Let me I'm going to run through the list of our percentages that we had from our response. So it's 34.6% said that they were in the Couch to 5K kind of park run, which is normally 5 kilometers, I believe, right? A park run.
Yeah.
In that bracket, so about a third of our teachers are doing Couch to 5K or park runs, and then you had another 32.7% who were in the 10K to half marathon distance, and then you had another kind of 15% who were doing marathons or more. That one really shocked me. I didn't realise that quite so many people were. A marathon's quite a big undertaking, right?
I mean, it is huge, and they say you don't get your medal for completing the marathon; you get it for completing the training. And I can vouch for that. It's such a large amount of time that you need to give up, because if you enjoy it, you shouldn't see it as time given up. But such a large amount of time you need to put aside to be able to train for these things. I think it'd be interesting to know how many of those teachers build their training into their commute. Because I cycle to school every day, it's a large part of my training for my triathlons is taken up just day to day cycling to work and back. Running is a little bit harder just with the amount that you have to carry, but that would be an interesting thing to know.
Yeah, I guess, and I'm thinking to myself here, I was very lucky at my last school. I lived about 200 meters from it. So my commute was kind of non-existent. And so very much my running was something that I did in the evenings or first thing in the morning. And I never really sort of defined, I never picked it, depended how I was feeling on that day. And so sometimes at the weekend as well. So, that was my running. And we've talked about lockdown and everything that happened there. I did used to go to the gym a lot more, and I did transfer that to running, mainly running kind of fitness over the lockdowns. But I have heard of people who run to work. In fact, one of our kind of Twitter responses from South Gloss Head said that as a charity event, he does a marathon before school, which to me sounded just terrible. Maybe we'll talk about some challenges a little bit later. But is it, are we seeing teachers doing this at weekends? Are we seeing people doing that commute, like you say, running into school and then, being ready for the day?
Yeah, I mean, through Twitter, I've seen such a variety. A lot of teachers who wake up very early, 5:30 in the morning, and go out and get that run in before the day even starts. And I think the beauty of that is, if you've got the discipline for it, that nothing's going to stop you doing that run. And we all know what happens throughout the day. Oh yeah, I'll do that after lunch. Oh, I'll do that at the end of the day, and suddenly that time never happens. Doing these things first thing in the morning is brilliant, but it's just got to work around you and your lifestyle. If you're a single parent at home with the children, you're not going to have to get up at 5:30 in the morning and go for a run, potentially. So it's about working it into your day. And like I said, for me, I'm able to build that into my commute, just because the distance I live and the amount that I need to carry each day, it works for me. And people just can experiment with that and see how it works. And the other thing is, roping other friends in, other colleagues even, and just going for that run straight after work. So it's done before you get home, when the jobs of just being at home again can get in your way.
And we talk about sort of running being kind of, we've talked a lot about doing it on our own, going out for a run, finding time yourself. But it's not really for a solitary sport. There is a running community, right? There are running clubs that people can join. Obviously, there's Teacher Run Club on Twitter that people can share their successes and share what they've been up to. But you don't have to do it alone, do you?
No, of course not. And I think that, again, this is a very individual thing, but I have friends who are part of run clubs, and they've improved their running tenfold just from being around people who are more experienced than them, being able to learn, just get that coaching. And I think it's important to remember that these places are so inclusive. They really want people from all different abilities. You shouldn't feel that, oh, I'm not a runner because I only run once a week. If you run, you're a runner. And these run clubs, they tailor for everybody, and you don't have to travel far to find one in your local area.
I'm going to ask you something. I saw this today, and because it kind of ties in with what you've just said there about entry level sports. And as a PE teacher, you might have a specific view on this. But I was at my local sports centre. Happened to go to take my boys on the flumes there, but they had an advert up that said fitness classes 11 plus, and I kind of had a bit of a gasp, a bit of a shiver. And then I started to think about it, and I don't know how I feel about it because of, I don't know. But one of the comments that came back to me when I raised this as a concern was that if you are not fit, joining a sports club that's a competitive team club can be really challenging and scary. Would that be something that you recognise as a kind of either entry level running, people who, myself, when I was smoking, I certainly wouldn't have tried to join a football team. Is there a fear of joining a sports collective because you lack the fitness, I guess is my question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very, very good point. And just to touch briefly on the active sort of fitness clubs for children with my PE teacher head on, I think that sport first and foremost needs to be fun, and that doesn't change for adults either. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, then what's the point in really doing that thing and putting your time into it? And hopefully that club for the children is just about having fun, being active, and hopefully building a bit of confidence. And I think that's, I suppose, the same for the adults. A lot of adults will have a lot of anxiety about going out and running with other people. When I'm out in the evening, I quite often see people running a lot later than I'd expect to see people running. I do wonder if that's because of that fear of running around other people. And they feel a lot safer just running on their own, either very early in the morning or very late at night. But going back to talking about the running clubs again, these places are very open to having absolutely anyone. But at the end of the day, people are going to do what they're happy to do. And if you feel confident, are happy running a bit earlier on your own until you build up that confidence, then I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I most found, I guess, about running, and I'm not a member of a club, I've never joined. I really want to, because the thing that it will give me is a day of the week when I have to do it. And I think I need that as we get into the winter months, that I need that, day of the week that the running club is running on Wednesday and you're going to be there because, there's a kind of commitment that you've made there. But the thing that I noticed, and going to events, and certainly my first events, was the encouragement, I guess you kind of described, at all levels, And I've never been to a park run, but I can imagine from what you've described that it's similar at that, of the marshals sort of cheering people on, of other runners sort of cheering people on. And I have to admit, even when people are going past you, there is an encouragement there as a collective, whatever your level.
Yeah, definitely. And if you go to any sort of run event, it's just so nice to see, especially if you're able to hang around the sort of finish line area. It's just such an amazing atmosphere, and you've got people who have put their time and effort into making these brilliant banners with sometimes hilarious signs on that just make you laugh whilst you're running, and they're brilliant when you've been running for an hour and you're really really tired, and you just suddenly see a stranger holding a sign that just says "Go on" or something bizarre, and it can really motivate you. And it is the littlest things. The one of my favorite days I can remember, and it was the first London Marathon that happened during lockdown when everyone did it virtually. And listeners or yourself might remember this. I just remember driving around seeing people running everywhere with their London Marathon bibs on, and people were just yelling encouragement, beeping the horn when they were going past, and it was just so genuine and really really inspiring to see.
Yeah, I think, I feel that. I often see, and I think, it is, I have to say, running for me did change slightly during lockdown where I was running, because for some of it, I was wearing a mask. And I don't know whether that was just my personal feeling, but certainly there are points when I felt uncomfortable panting heavily running past someone who was walking their dog. I certainly felt that. But for the most part, when you're running, if you can, if you can manage to get out a hello or a smile, most people look favourably upon you, or kind of are pleased to see you, or encouraging in that sense, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important to, make sure you are giving people that bit of extra space. And something I've become a lot more aware of recently, especially when running past females who are walking or running, is just making sure I'm allowing that space to. I have a I have a problem with making people jump a lot. I just tend to walk into rooms and make people jump without meaning to. And I think when I'm running, I'm quite conscious of that. I found you spoke earlier about running with headphones in. And recently, I was running down the towpath practicing for my event, and I was always trying to make myself either run very loudly or say a very loud hello, just to pre-warn people that I was coming, just to try and make sure, yeah, people were aware that you're there, happy, going to say hello, and then carry on my way.
It's just come back to me, but I will tell you this: the worst mistake I made running, and now bearing in mind that I previously did live in quite a tough area. So it was quite a tough area, and my running style at the time, my clothing choice at the style would be best described as being a touch like Rocky Balboa, kind of grey hoodie up, beanie hat on. I kind of, I'm a young man, and I saw a car that had one of my colleagues from work, a female colleague from work, and she was parked up, and as I was jogging past, kind of stopped and tapped on the window, and yeah, that did not. That
Didn't
was
go
that
down
was
too well.
that was that was not a good kind of, because obviously, yeah, I kind of completely did not look like myself and looked like I was just about to jump the car. So yeah, I think there is. One of the things I do, now that you mention it, weirdly, is that I kind of scuff my feet a bit when I come up behind someone, or kind of kick a few pebbles. I do try and make some noise. Is there, like, I'm trying to think of, I guess we don't have bells on us as runners. If you're on a bike, you'd ding a bell, but there isn't a universal kind of language for that, or calling out that people should be doing. It's just,
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I'm part of a group called the Running Mares, and this is a campaign from a company called Run Some. They're trying to have these advocates for running in each town or city across the country, and that was a conversation that came up about these running bells, something that you could hold in your hand to kind of ding, just to let people know that you were there. I think cars have become a lot more aware of runners having to step into the road. That's something that I've noticed.
hmm.
But it's something that as a runner you have to be very very aware of. If you are going to pass someone, making sure you are checking over your shoulder just to see before just stepping out into the road. And but I found that pedestrians and walkers have been very very good at seeing a runner come in and then just sort of standing into a drive or stepping to the side. And I don't think I'd ever expect it. I would prefer to take myself out of the way, than a pedestrian have to stop. But no, I think everyone's very, very accommodating as a whole.
Yeah, I probably, depending if I was going uphill or not, I would change my opinion on that, of whether I wanted them to move out my way or not, or whether I could run a little bit extra around them. So we've talked a little bit about why people get into running, some of the benefits of running. I guess some people get put off, some people make mistakes, and I certainly made a lot of mistakes when I first started running, because I guess I was bold and I was brash, and I just thought that I could do it. What are some of the common mistakes that either put people off at the start or cause them problems when they first start running?
I think, maybe just having a little bit, setting your goals a little bit too high too soon, and then that's when you're causing yourself injury, or maybe even having too higher expectation of where you think you should be after a short time. And it goes back to what I said earlier about, you are on your own journey. You're not you shouldn't have to compare yourself to someone else's journey. And I think that is a mistake. And that's what I'm guilty of still now, is looking over at the person next to you and thinking, oh, they're going that fast. Why aren't I going that fast? So I'd say that is a mistake that we continue to make over and over again. But in terms of running styles and techniques, I think it's very much you're getting out there, and if you're running on your own, you're not learning from the running club. But if you're able to run with, even if you're able to run with a friend who's done a bit of running, they can just give you a little bit of advice. It might be on to what shoes to wear, or what type of top to wear, or something that will stop you sweating when it's raining. Just those little things that you will find out the more you do it and the more you speak to people.
Yeah, I think, I think there were a number of little tips that I've picked up. One of the ones that I remember finding out, and I'd battered my toes, a lot when I first started running, and it turned out I'd been used to, from doing rock climbing and things, you wear incredibly tight shoes. In fact, in rock climbing, they say, check your shoe size and then go down a size, and they're already tight shoes. They're like ballerina shoes, but with kind of hard rubber on. And so when I started running, I was running with shoes that were my size, and I was bashing my toes, and I lost a number of kind of either bruised or red toenails on the end of it. And that's probably quite a common thing for a lot of people, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I think it is just little things that now seem simple now that you know about it. But if no one tells you, then you're not going to know, are you? And I'm a very much a lone wolf when it comes to my exercise. I do probably about 95% of all my training on my own, and so I have to kind of make a real effort to watch YouTube videos and try and find out these. Why am I struggling with this? I have to actively go and find out why. And I think unless you've spoken to people and you've tried to seek out the reason for these things, you might not know that you're doing something, for lack of a better word, wrong.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I went and bought a nice pair of running shoes from it's a treat. This is after I've been running a couple of years, I think. And, I was in a running shop, and I'd gone, right, I'm going to spend, a little bit of money on these. And the guy sort of doing it, he said, oh, well, we'll start with half a size bigger than you normally do. And I was like, what? Sorry, what? He was like, oh, yeah. I was like, oh, I wish I'd put it out there or asked someone beforehand about this tip or this trick to improve my experience, reduce a bit of pain, I guess, in doing it, right, by reaching out there. And I guess, having something like a virtual run club, like, Teachers Run Club, is something that people can do that with too, right?
Yeah, and the amount of questions that we get through on Twitter, what's been really nice is I hope no one feels like there's a silly question, because the experience is so broad, from people who are just starting Couch to 5K week one to an Olympian who is a teacher and who follows Teachers Run Club, and every single runner in between. So if anyone is asking a question, they're suddenly given so many different responses and options to choose from.
Yeah. Lucy's just texted in to the show saying that my feet are size 6 and I run in a 7.5. Lucy, that's the message I could have done with maybe 4 years ago now, before I'd lost a number of toenails. through pounding them into the concrete. But yeah, I guess there's these little tips out there, I guess, that people know, that I guess unless you're part of a community, and you say lone wolf in your training, I feel that a lot. I go and do things on my own. I may read about them, but there is something to be said for joining a community, isn't there?
Yeah, 100%. I think just having that ability to just have informal conversations with people, you'll find out things you didn't even know you needed to know. But I mean, I think when it comes to things like shoes, you can't go far wrong by just going and actually buying your running shoes from a running shop and actually getting your feet measured correctly, getting your running style measured, because there's so many different types of running shoe. I wouldn't even dare to think of how many different types you could get, and the different fits for your size, your weight, the way you run. And yeah, you could be running in the complete wrong shoe for you.
Oh, I loved it. It's an experience. I went to the running shop, and they put me on one of the machines, and they videoed the back of my feet. And they kind of told me, oh, well, you've got a slight leaning in on that side, that you need something that's holding your ankles more. But there really is, some science behind it. When you can buy the right shoe, I guess, when you start thinking about doing those longer distances, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first thing you're going to do. Like we've said already, get out in what you've got, and then once you know it's something that you want to commit to, then you can start investing that bit more time and money into it. But I suppose the important thing is that you don't want to do yourself any injury, and you want to probably work out pretty quickly if you are going to carry on. And no, you don't have to go and get £150 running shoes and then pay to get them sized and measured. You can pay a lot less. You don't have to go and get them fitted, and you can still get a good pair of shoes that are going to be good for your feet, and then just move on in that direction.
Now, Dan, what we are going to be doing, we're going to go to the news. We're going to go to a couple of adverts, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about challenges, right? And challenge inspiration. I'm really excited about this because, it means I get to talk about having done exciting stuff myself, but also it's something that can really benefit people, benefit charities, and it's really tied in with sort of some of the running things we've been talking about. So, Dan, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute you just for the adverts and the news. It will take us about 3 or 4 minutes as we go to Megan for the news, and then I'll see you on the other side, Dan.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Cool. So off we go to the news, everyone.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. School and college leaders have come together to call for Education Secretary Gavin Williamson to end his fixation with banning mobile phones. The Association of School and College Leaders have called Williamson's views outdated and out of touch, saying school and college leaders are slightly mystified about the Education Secretary's fixation with banning mobile phones in classrooms, because they've been dealing with the practicalities of this issue for many years now. The ASCL emphasised that the focus should instead be on ways to create calmer learning environments post-pandemic. Cybersecurity firm McAfee have released a study that found UK parents were increasingly worried about their children sharing personal information, accessing illegal content, and encountering misinformation or cyberbullying online. Nearly half of those surveyed said they felt digital wellness and protection should be taught in schools. 36% of participants said they would be discussing internet safety with their children, and 19% had taken steps to invest in cybersecurity products. A spokesperson for McAfee said, following the pandemic, we know that many parents have become more aware of the need for their children to be protected online, and are looking to schools to help them educate their children about safe online behaviour. Education unions have written a joint letter to Gavin Williamson requesting proper measures to increase airflow ahead of the new academic year. In the letter, The union said that the benefits of ventilation in the control of airborne diseases are already well understood and accepted. Paul Whiteman commented that given the government has removed the majority of the measures that were in place to reduce COVID transmission in schools, the least it can do is to take seriously the ones that remain, or we will continue to see major disruption to children's education. That was your latest Teachers Talk radio news.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsier puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.cre8tiveresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TT Radio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TT Radio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club. Introducing the Leadership Masterclass series by Diana Osagi. Learn how to ditch your fears and develop your leadership confidence. How to deal with difficult colleagues. How to thrive when you lead in a challenging environment. And how to get colleagues to buy into your vision. Join Diana for her online leadership masterclasses starting on the 10th of July and running all the way through the summer. These sessions are the perfect way to prepare and refresh for the next academic year and beyond. Book your place at courageousleadership.co.uk/events now. The first 50 leaders to sign up get an additional free mini coaching session with Diana herself. Don't miss this. Courageous Leadership Masterclasses at courageousleadership.co.uk/events.
And a bore da pawb, croeso i Abertawe. Welcome to Swansea. It is the Twilight Show on Teachers Talk Radio with me, Nathan Gynn. And we have been talking to Dan Chaplin about running. Now, Dan, welcome back, Dan.
Thank you.
Dan is a running mayor of Luton, PE teacher, triathlete, soon to be ultra marathon runner, all-round action superhero, it sounds like.
I'll take that.
Yeah, so all-round action superhero Dan is with us, and we're going to be talking about challenges for everyone. Okay, now I love a good challenge, but with challenge inspiration, you're talking about them in a very specific way, right?
Yeah, I mean, challenge inspiration really is just a concept, or it's an idea. It's sharing things that I've had the pleasure of being involved with organising, and that is setting up these challenges for teachers to take part in fundraising, active fundraising challenges. But the flip side is that they benefit the children they benefit the community, and they are obviously benefiting the staff as well, and just really promoting, again, that active, healthy lifestyle.
Now, when I've put this out there, is maybe some of this is around the wording that I've put it out there. What I got back was, a lot of running that was going on and people were doing. Now, as I say, we mentioned earlier, South Gloss Head on Twitter, who said that they, for charity, every year would run a marathon before school, arriving at school at the start of the school day to help raise money for charity. And one of the things that I did in the summer term is I ran a marathon distance from our local zoo back to school to raise money for a trip to the zoo. It was something that we wanted to put on, something that, normally we would have PTA funds from a school disco, from a summer fete, from a Christmas fair that hadn't happened because of lockdown. So we needed some money. And jokingly, I sort of saw that the distance and the price for a coach for 26 miles was a lot of money, and joked that I could probably run it. And that snowballed into a, yeah, you should. Yeah, I can. We don't believe you. And then, yeah, okay, I will. No, I'm definitely going to do it. And so I ran the 26 miles pretty much unsupported back to school. And it was horrible. And it was a really silly decision. It raised a couple of £1,000, which got the trip through. But I completely made a hash, I guess, of planning, of understanding really what I was getting involved with. So there are big ticket kind of things that people can do, right?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'd just like to say that the events that hopefully we'll sort of talk about that I've been involved with, I've had a fantastic team at work who helped me or work with me to put on these events, and we've been so lucky to be able to do some amazing things, and we'll definitely talk about them. It's definitely not a one-person job to be able to put on these challenges, because like you say, the planning and organizing that goes into it is huge, and the more time and effort you put in before the event in terms of planning, the easier your challenge is going to be when it comes to the day, as you would have seen.
Now, I will say, my school were very supportive. I should say, the head teacher did allow me a day out of class to do it. It wasn't in my PPA time, so no, I joke. They were very supportive, and they helped me through it. But you're right. There is I guess maybe sometimes a barrier there, though, for people to think, God, I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah, I think that is something that's is a lot to think about, and my answer to that would be to start small, because you don't. And also, we're going back to what we said earlier in terms of putting people off. My kind of catchphrase is challenging but achievable. You want people to say, "Oh, that sounds tough, but maybe I could do that with a bit of work." And the first event that I put on at school was a race for life for teachers. And the plan was for this to happen during the school day at the local park. We were going to actually bring the whole school down to kind of be there and cheer on the teachers as they took on this 5K. Things happened, and we ended up actually running it in the evening, which was also nice. It became this Twilight run. But what was really good was we had a 9-week lead up where some of the teachers then took part in the Couch to 5K program. So it wasn't just a one-hit wonder event. It actually built up. We could work with the community to promote it, and they were able to be there and witness it. And it was kind of a real community, wholesome vibe to the event.
I really like so much about that and the way you describe it. There's one bit I'm going to focus on, and I really like that, challenging but achievable. Because, I mean, ideally in these challenges, we want to see a little bit of pain, right? A little bit of sweat. We want to get something for our money out of the teachers.
Yeah, of course you do. And I think there's two ways of looking at these events. You either look at a huge event, your John O'Groats to Land's End, but it's one or two people doing it. Or are you doing a 5K and you want absolutely everyone to take part? And you think there's no reason why, in some shape or form, everyone can't take part. And you're raising a small amount of money per person, as opposed to a very large amount of money per the one or two individuals taking part in the grand challenge.
Okay, and I kind of like that it's, kind of, you can go one of two ways. You can either kind of do, as I say, that kind of big challenge ticket item where it's all on one person, obviously with a team supporting them, but there's kind of a headline element. or you can do something that's a bit broader, which is something that I've not really considered before. So I'll be really interested to hear your kind of views on it. Maybe I had kind of a superhero complex in going into it, that I wanted to kind of, do it myself and be the one person doing it. And maybe I should maybe have spread that out a bit. I don't know. But so is it a lot of running that these challenges come through at?
I think that if you're looking for a mass participation event, running or walking is your sort of the one that you want. Just because, like we already talked about, the accessibility of it, you don't need a huge space to put on a 5K event. Our run was in a park; it was 6 laps, which was a bit of an ordeal in itself, trying to keep track of how many laps you'd done without a Garmin on your wrist. But yeah, a running is, you look at like a bike ride. Everyone has to have the equipment, they have to have a bike in the first place. But if you wanted to put on a walk or a run, a lot of people would be able to do that with the things that they already had on them. People aren't having to spend a lot of money to take part, and that is a barrier, isn't it, in itself?
Yeah, and I guess, I have seen people do, I guess, big things before. And I'm a little bit torn on this. I'd be interested to hear your opinion about people doing something. Now, I admit I did at some point want to run a marathon, and I do enjoy running. So kind of that is a little bit me doing it. But I've never done or arranged to do like a sponsored skydive, because one, I'd quite like to do a skydive, and I'm not sure, having a cut of it taken from sponsorship or whatever, I don't know how I feel about that. But also there is that cost, I guess, of it that you're describing there. For me to do something like that, I've got to factor in all of these costs, right? Whereas a relay 5K around the school field, costs are going to be quite low as far as any sort of outlay to be able to put on the event.
Yeah, definitely. And I can sort of talk to both sides of that. Yeah, if you're doing something that is local, your costs are going to be very, very low. You can obviously work with your community to be able to hopefully have some donations made if it's water or what have you. But if you are looking at something bigger, yeah, the costs are a lot higher, and that's where, on the events that we've worked on, we have had to work really closely with trying to gain sponsors from companies that do a lot of work with the school, and seeing
Okay.
are they able to help us. So we might a contractor that we work with a lot, we might reach out to them and say, look, we're putting this on, would you be able to donate £250 towards fuel costs from the minibus, and just being quite savvy and thinking about who has gained a lot from the school and maybe willing to help us a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's something there that I think the planning stage of it is quite important. This inception stage of, so I guess when people start thinking about something like this, they're probably facing a budgetary crisis. Maybe I can certainly attest. I was a deputy head at a primary school last year, and finances are always tight. Particularly for something like I did mine for school trips, but books in primary schools, people are always needing money for books. So, the cost of it is incredible. And so there's always a need to fundraise. So I guess, does it start with an idea of what you want the money for, or an idea that you just generically want to fundraise?
I think it can go both ways. I think we've talked earlier about, I can use one of our events as an example. We sadly lost one of our colleagues a few years ago now to cancer, and she went to university in York. So we wanted to do something in her memory. We wanted to raise money for the particular, it was for Macmillan actually that we raised money from, and we wanted to involve as many people as possible. So we ended up doing something that was a bike and hike, and 6 of us cycled from York to just outside Luton over 2 days, where that was the 6 of us. That was the big grand gesture. We were then met by over 100 people from the community to walk the 10 kilometers from this local village back into the school. So we were able to have the grand gesture event as well as having the mass participation event, which was for, we had children, dogs, everyone sort of taking part. And going back to your point about deciding what comes first, for us that was kind of both things. We knew we wanted to do something for this person, and then it was piecing it together.
Mm.
Taking what the kind of information that you have, like if you know you wanted to raise money for books, you might want to find out about local author and see, okay, where do they live, or what's something that they had done. Maybe they had a story that was about a journey, and you might be able to create some sort of challenge or run that incorporated part of that journey. It's just an idea, but yeah, I think once you start getting creative, throwing some ideas around, you can be really clever with kind of challenges that you come up with.
Yeah, I really like that. I'm thinking now, as I say, when I was based in Hampshire, we were near Jane Austen, and I think, if it was for books, could I do, run to Jane Austen's house? I was very lucky with my marathon, as I say, that the school and the zoo that we wanted to go to happened to be 26 miles apart,
Yeah.
roughly. We were able to run the route, and so it kind of just made that kind of tagline of school to zoo marathon to raise money for school trips, that kind of all fell into place for us quite naturally. There was a bit though that you talked about earlier that I really wanted to hark back to, which was you talked about maybe like a legacy. I'm thinking back in my head, it triggered this idea of the Olympics and the Olympic legacy from 2012, when we had the Olympics here, and it was supposed to leave something behind. And I didn't do that. I feel like looking back at it now, there was something I missed there, because it didn't leave, apart from the trip, I haven't left people feeling healthier. I haven't brought other people along. I might have inspired them a little bit, but can you talk a little bit more about that kind of idea that you were building in a kind of legacy into the event?
Yeah, I think that the point that I try and make, and my team, we try and make when we do these events is, yes, it's the adults taking part, but we are all at school to support the children, and they need to be gaining from what we do. And it's not just, like you said, a chance for the staff to go and take on a challenge they've always wanted to do. So one of the events that we were working towards was a hike, working with a couple of schools, and the children, we always try and do these events on school days as much as possible, where we're able to, because the children are able to interact with us. So when we were cycling from York to Luton, we were getting constant messages from the children from their classes, and they were asking us questions or giving us challenges. One of my colleagues, he ended up singing Let It Go from Frozen while cycling, because that was a challenge from a class. And in terms of motivation for us, it was fantastic, because we were constantly motivated by the kids. And back at school, the children all biked to school that day, and throughout the week we really promoted cycling. And then we were giving them challenges that they could try out at home, and getting them to send videos of them cycling. So not only us doing the bike riding, hopefully 100, 200, however many children were out on their bikes that time as well, and hopefully it kind of sunk with them to want to do that a bit more.
Yeah, and this kind of mini challenge, I guess, kind of micro challenges, I really like. And you, as a PE teacher as well, there must be something there of, I guess, the fitness element that it brings to people, that they are setting these kind of mini challenges for themselves. That even if I'm trying to think of back in my days when I was going to the gym more, it was maybe like 10 press ups this week, maybe 12 next week. That's how you improve fitness, right?
Yeah, it is. It's baby steps, and I think we're talking about teachers trying to fit this active lifestyles into their day. It's can I go and do a 10-minute walk at lunchtime, or maybe I'll walk to the coffee shop that's a little bit further than the other one, just to get those steps up, because it's very easy just to become sedentary throughout the day and not move around, especially if you're office based. You might end up realizing you've been sat down for 3 hours without actually moving. And a challenge is as simple, it doesn't have to be a fundraiser, it could just be a challenge for yourself, that I'm still going to get 10,000 steps today. I'm not going to phone the person in the office 2 doors down from me. I am going to get up and walk and talk to them.
Yeah, because the steps thing was maybe like 3 years ago now. I think when I was in schools then, everyone had kind of staff group step challenges, and that seems to have petered away a bit now, I think.
Yeah, I do remember when that was a big thing, and I don't know whether it's just become normalized now. I know that every evening my son has his sort of Garmin Junior, and every night he'll compare his steps to my wife and I. And sometimes he's been at school all day, and I'm like, how have you only done 7,000 steps? You've been at school all day. And other days he's done 20,000 steps. Something we've done with the children is bought some of these Garmin Juniors or pedometers, and it's amazing to see how much more active the children are just knowing that they have it on. or if they know that their friends were in it for that day, and it might be more steps or more points for their class or whatever. But just knowing that they're measuring their steps just creates that more active atmosphere, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I wear one still, mainly because it has my emails come through onto it. But I do still wear one that counts my steps, and I have no idea most days. Like, it is sometimes a complete surprise to me whether my what my steps are for that day. It's almost like I'll know if I'm on call. I'll get around a lot of classrooms, but apart from that, sometimes I'll get home at night and I really will be surprised that I've either done a lot or done not many steps.
Yeah, it is surprising, and sometimes it will buzz to say you're at 10,000 steps, and it's only 10 a.m. And other days we get to the end of the day and you're still only on 7. It really does depend on the job role, and I think, if you're a site agent or if you're a PE teacher, you're naturally just putting in a lot of those steps every day. But yes, if you're someone who's office based, maybe not class based, it is a lot harder to get those steps in.
Okay, so we have a kind of, if any of our listeners are listening in, please remember you can call in, you can text in if you have a question for us to let us know. But if you are thinking about a challenge, you are heading into September and you are thinking, let's start small, something that I can do with my class to kind of just bring up fitness levels in my class a little bit, kind of set a little competitive challenge, maybe not too competitive with ourselves, as we've said. What sort of thing could I be doing as a teacher with my class that's just kind of raising that aspiration a little bit?
I mean, a lot's been said for the Daily Mile, and I think that it doesn't have to be the Daily Mile. It can be anything that just incorporates being outside and moving. And I think that it's very easy to, there's so much pressure on teachers to make sure they're fitting everything into their day, but just remembering that being able to take the children outside for 3 or 4 minutes just to run around and re-engage with what they're doing is really important. And the challenge might be just that after X amount of time, we will get out or have a run around. Or as a teacher, I'm going to go and do the Daily Mile with the children to get my steps up at the same time. One of the most successful events that I've been involved within school is running the Race for Life. We open up the school grounds, we make a big circuit, and throughout the day, the children have time slots and they just run laps of the school. And you wouldn't believe how much they enjoy it every year. Are we doing that again? Are we doing that again? And really all they've done is run around for 45 minutes. But they've got a tennis racket and they're balancing a tennis ball. They're dribbling a football. They're bouncing a basketball, just taking their mind off being active because they've got something in their hand.
Yeah, I really like that kind of almost a distraction from, not a distraction, but from just to keep it, because I have to say, I find, running on its own hard. From my favorite distance is probably 10K, maybe, I somewhere in between a 10K and a half marathon, because frankly, I get a bit bored, right? I find it kind of, my mind wanders or whatever. And some people, that could be a negative of running in general, but also running things like the Daily Mile with pupils. They just see it as just running, right?
Yeah, and that's going back to earlier conversations saying about sport has to be fun, or just being active has to be fun. And we can't expect the children to go and run around for 10 minutes in the freezing cold and not sort of try and take part ourselves, even if we're walking. But yeah, just change that mindset and have a football on your feet, and you see how long that they'll run for, or a tennis racket, or whatever it is for each individual child, and knowing what the children enjoy as well. Not everyone's going to want football, but there will be something that allows that person to really enjoy what they're doing.
So that kind of sets our little kind of low, kind of getting a culture of challenge, of taking on physical challenges, of improving our fitness. What about if there's a teacher who's kind of going in, or maybe a deputy, a senior leader who's going into school in September, knowing that their library stock is missing, knowing that they have a personal connection to a charity, for instance, or something that they want to do something a little bit bigger for, hopefully raising some money. What would be a good way for them to start?
I think it's understanding the level of staff involvement and seeing if the demand is there. and having a kind of a champion, if you like, a champion of throughout the staff who is happy to lead, to support, to help to motivate everyone. You kind of need that person who's going to take the torch and hopefully drag everyone along with them. And I think starting with something like the Race for Life, or how Captain Tom's 100 laps, like that event was so good, because you've got teachers and children all taking part together, working towards the same goal. And I think that's a really good way to start, and just kind of see what people want and just have that open conversation with the teachers. You might not know that you've got 6 teachers who love swimming. Okay, brilliant. You've got somewhere to start there.
Yeah, I think, and I do like that collective. Having done a challenge that was very individual, I think the thing that I regret about it was, there were people cheering at it. There are other people in that sense. And there were people who helped with the planning, helped with the setup, but it was very individual. And it didn't feel like it left a lasting, or that everyone was involved. And I really like this idea of being able to get more people involved in the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, the cycling from York to Luton is one of the single greatest things that I've been involved with. And I know some of the people who took part are listening. And we didn't only have our 6 cyclists, we had a support crew of 3 who were there every minute of the way with us in the minibus. They were, making sure we were fed, making sure we were hydrated, making sure we knew we were going and we were warm. And just within a 2 or 3 day period, the bond that you built with each other you couldn't have gotten any other way. And I think for a senior leader looking to try and, work on teamwork even within their staff, these kinds of challenges where you're having to rely on one another, you can't beat them. And no, not everyone can do a massive challenge, but just being able to take what we took from those challenges, it's been so good in school. And I think that I know that the staff who are at school during these events taking place, they say that the atmosphere within the school is not like any other day, because everyone's so excited about what's going on. With that event particularly, they all knew that they were going to see us at the finish line the next day. As we cycled into this village, there was over 100 people from school that we all knew cheering us in, and everyone felt invested in the event. It wasn't just the 6 of us; it was everyone.
And I love that as a kind of a final sort of comment, that because we will have to kind of wrap up in a second and go to another ad break, but everyone felt invested is kind of my favorite quote about, I guess, what I felt I missed out on doing my event. People did feel invested, but they weren't participating. They weren't kind of, maybe I didn't make enough of that. But the way you talk about everyone felt invested is such a lovely way to kind of bring that challenge, a school community, along and make it something that has a legacy.
Yeah, I think that is important, because and don't put yourself down, because your event was huge, and what you might have done is actually set up for the next one to do a bit more, because every time you do a challenge you learn more, and you think, well, actually next time I'll do this. So for example, during the walk, the 10-kilometer walk, we knew there were children there, so along the route we created a quiz, and it was about the event, it was about the teachers who were taking part, it was just something to keep them engaged. And there's just so many little things that you can do, just having those messages back and forth, or having a support crew, working with other local schools. It doesn't just have to be you and your school, it could be partnership schools, or if you're part of a academy trust. That's how you can start to widen that umbrella of the involvement.
That as I say, there is something really there that I think schools, the challenging, that doing challenges, I think there is a need for it in our communities at the moment. Whatever anyone thinks about funding for schools, whatever anyone thinks about whether there is extra money being pumped in for catch up, I honestly can say where I have worked is there has always been a need for that within schools for fundraising. And I will say that the amount of work that charities are having to do at the moment, certainly from a personal perspective, I think is invaluable, and also is something that we really need to get behind where we can. And it's such a great way of doing it. Now, Dan, thank you so much for coming on. It's been lovely. Our first running mayor of Luton, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yep. So a wonderful kind of guest talking about Teachers Run Club. Now, was there any message you wanted to give out about Teachers Run Club just before we head to the news? Because I know we've talked a bit about challenges before now, but back to Teachers Running.
Yeah, I think just the main message is that, Teachers Run Club is for everyone. Even if you're not a runner, even if we've got open water swimmers and cyclists, if you just enjoy being active, it's just a great community to be able to talk to people through. And if you're not active, but you think, I want to, and I want to be inspired, just pop a message on Twitter and you'll be inundated with people trying to offer you support. And we've got, big hopes for the future. We've only been going for a short time, but hopefully over time, the Teachers Run Club will become a very big community, visible in a lot of places.
Yeah, and I would say to people, the mistakes I made when I first started running was not being part of a community, whether in person or digitally. I that was the thing that I think I made in my first years running. The thing that made it feel harder, that I could have got over quite easily. So yeah, I would concur there. Now, thank you for coming on, Dan. I'm going to mute you and end your call just as we go to the adverts. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. Right, and off we go to the adverts.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
And Bore da pawb, or should I say Nostar? It's getting into the evening now. Nostar and Croeso I Abertawe. Welcome to Swansea. Welcome to the Twilight Show with Nathan Gynn on Teachers Talk Radio. If you have just joined us, you have just missed out on our chat with Dan Chaplin, the running mayor of Luton, also organiser of Teachers Run Club on Twitter, where he is, I guess, harnessing some of this power that we've seen. As I say, we did a poll, about 80% of teachers are runners. It is a massive part of the teaching community now that people are getting out there, whether it be couch to 5K, 5K, 10K, park runs or more, even into the marathons. People are out there running. And in the second part of the show, we talked a little bit about doing challenges for charity or for fundraising for schools, or just to kind of improve the school community. So we talked about that and the things that people can be doing to help them. Now, if you have missed out, you can listen back to all of our shows, not just this one, at ttradio.org/listenback, where you can visit our website. You can find out a little bit about the hosts as well. Or you can follow us on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram to find out more about the upcoming shows and what's on. And now, as I say, I am here in Swansea, I'm here in South Wales, and at the start of the show, I did talk a little bit about being outed as a Saesneg, I guess, is the term English. Saesneg is the Welsh word for English. I will read out a quote from the Daily Post in Wales about what it means. If you overhear Saesneg from a Welsh person, for example, it could be an insult. The word literally means English, but it's often used as a derogatory way for people who are second homeowners in Wales. So, Saesneg, kind of a slightly derogatory word. It does say there that you might also hear as an Englishman that I could possibly be defined as in Wales. I might hear mochyn, which means pig, which I I have not heard myself, apart from when I use it about my son. I do say mochyn bach, which means piglet, because he is a little piglet, one of them. But Saesneg, I could be, and I have been outed. One of our other hosts, who is Welsh, Kate Jones, called me part Welsh, which I guess I could be defined as, but I felt kind of, it does come across a little bit like Harry Potter, in that, kind of that mudblood, half wizarding world kind of tone. So I did look up, ready for, I guess, next week, maybe I might be able to get some help in proving my Welshness, I guess. I checked out a YouGov poll that asked the question, and this was back in 2016, this YouGov poll, but it asked the question of Welsh people and Scottish, actually, about what they would consider defines a person as being Welsh or being Scottish, sort of in their turn. So, if you are born in Wales, 91% of Welsh people agree that you can call yourself Welsh. So, born in Wales, I don't know who the other 9% who felt that that wasn't good enough to call yourself Welsh, but apparently 91% of the Welsh believe if you're born in Wales, you're Welsh, you're okay. Then the next one is if you have two Welsh parents. If you have two Welsh parents, then 78% of people in Wales believe that you can call yourself Welsh if you have two Welsh parents. If you grew up in Wales, 68%. Only 68% believe if you grew up in Wales, you can call yourself Welsh. So far, none of those things apply to me. So my diminishing returns are getting lower about whether or not I can call myself Welsh. One Welsh parent, and this is where I sit, one Welsh parent, 61%. So 61% of the country agrees that I am Welsh. So I guess there we go. Accent or not, 61% of the nation believe I am Welsh, and so there we go. Now there are a few more that go down. We'll follow it down. Now apparently, if you consider yourself Welsh, 42% of the country believe that you are Welsh. So there you go. If you just consider yourself Welsh, nearly half the country think that you are Welsh. Speaking Welsh, as I do a little bit, 33% of the country. Lived in Wales for 10 years plus, which I haven't, 27% of the country, and lived in Wales for 5 to 10 years, which I have. 16% of the country believe I could be Welsh. So all I need now is a few more challenges to prove my Welshness, I guess, as we go through. Now, I did check out whether I was eligible to play international rugby for Wales while I was at it. So I checked out, and there are apparently a couple of rules that I need to fit into if I am ever to get that red jersey for myself. Now, these are the rules about being able to represent a country. If you were born in the country, no. If you have a parent or grandparent who was born in the country. Now, I am quite lucky there. I have a parent, and then on the other side, I have I think I have a grandparent as well. So possibly I fit into the category already. If you have lived in the country for 36 consecutive months, yes, I have done that. I'm eligible on that. Or if you've completed 10 years of cumulative residence in the country, I would have to work that one out. I think I'm close. So as you can see, I can, on a couple of characteristics, possibly call myself Welsh. So I'm hoping to meet some other criteria. So if you have some criteria that you feel I need to meet to be able to call myself Welsh, then I will be looking forward to hearing those as we go through. Now, it is worth just reminding, just as we finish off, some of the tweets and some of the conversation that we have had from our comments on Twitter about what kind of running people are doing and why they got into running. Now, Zed Bridle said that they used to run, but they found it impossible as a single parent to do it, but they are doing those thousands of stairs every day. Now, that is good to hear, and possibly fits into the challenges that Dan Chaplin and I talked about slightly afterwards. We had running with their 12-year-old daughter now from Angela, AZ. getting in there, turning it into a family thing, which again ties back into some of the things that Dan and I were talking about being invested really, and bringing a group of people together in our challenges and what we do. We certainly had a couple of people there talking about a quill sniffer talking about after their dad having a cardiac arrest and living quite a sedentary life, getting them becoming a runner to, I guess, improve that health because of a big moment. And as I say, that was something that happened for me where I was had a moment, I guess, where my brother had passed away and I was not living a healthy lifestyle. And it wasn't necessarily a change because I wanted to become more healthy, but I wanted to do something. I wanted to compete in a race that was named after him. And that was my motivating factor. And, as we've seen a number of people come through with their motivating factors about why they got it into running. Now, as I say, it's been lovely hearing some of your comments, lovely seeing those comments come through on Twitter. You can, of course, text in to Teachers Talk Radio and you can call in, but we are on our way to the end of the show. I will remind you, we've been talking with Dan Chaplin at Teachers Run Club and challenge inspiration about the things that you can do. And you can visit Teachers Talk Radio, ttradio.org. To listen back to any of our shows, including this one. Now, we're just going to slowly play our way out to the other side.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.
And Nostar, everyone. Good night. Enjoy your runs this week. And we'll see you the same time next week.